Okay, so I had to collect myself again after that one. Like I said, this seems like a long time ago, and maybe it feels like it doesn't matter to a lot of people that have made it this far through the story. But all of this is very raw because we haven't gotten to talk about it, and we haven't had any resolution. So now that we kind of got through why exactly or how exactly Outer Lines actually shut down, I want to go backwards a little bit and talk about some of the things that took place while we were there. Why we called it a hostile work environment and why it seemed just to be compensated for some of the things that we experienced there. So I want to talk about one incident that was probably the worst. I mean, there was a lot of everyday things that happened at the hands of our executive director. I talked about some of them already. But I want to talk about one incident specifically that was probably the worst experience that I had in my years as a staff person there. So Jim Moran is a very wealthy gentleman. He gives to a lot of organizations. I feel like he gives to the Gay Men's Chorus. He gave to, I don't know, he gives to a lot of LGBTQ organizations or whatever because he's wealthy. He has family money, I think. And so he called a lot of shots around the Outlaw Alliance and everywhere he goes because people want to cater to him to get his money when he dies, basically. And Outer Alliance was no different. He was really the only large sum of money donor that Jeff had managed to procure while running the agency, and so him especially. So we held a sage lunch. So it was a lunch for seniors every Wednesday, I believe. And it was my least favorite day of the week because although Kanie Haney came in with some wonderful food that she would feed us, and we love her, a lot of the SAGE members really struggled with the changes the agencies were making, which I was held responsible for a lot of them. I really made a push towards diversity and inclusion, making sure trans folks felt welcome in our space, making sure Black and brown folks, BIPOC folks felt welcome in our space. And those were not changes that a lot of our older folks that were involved in Outer Lines wanted to see, frankly. And so there was a lot of racial stuff and misgendering and things that took place, and I was put in the position to always handle those things. Or I'd be left to our immediate staff that was in the room, Braden Reese often, but then he would come to me because I was the person in charge. And so I would have to handle it. So on this day in particular, which happened to be February 4th, 2020, was a sage lunch. And Jim Moran, this person, had come in. And so one of our Black trans women that was a staff member there, she was helping and she was collecting money from each of the people that came in. I want to say lunch was like $5 or something, $3, to just help offset costs for that program. And so she had asked him as he walked in the door if he was going to pay for him and his guests because he brought someone with them. And he absolutely very purposely ignored her and walked past her. So I didn't want her to engage with him because I have had run-ins with him in the past where he's been like aggressive or rude or mean. So I did not want her to have to deal with that. So I was standing there. So I stepped in and I said, hi, Mr. Moran, could I speak to you outside? Because I also didn't want him to feel like he was getting embarrassed in front of people or whatever. And he refused. And he was a thin man, but he was tall as hell. And I'm only 5'2". So he pushed past me with such force that it literally almost knocked me backwards. Well, like I almost fell, but like it knocked me backwards. And so he just ignored me and pushed past me. He like did this like thing with his hand, like dismissive of me or whatever. And so I followed behind him as he went through. There were a bunch of tables set up and he was a little bit late. And so people were already sitting down or whatever. And so I followed behind him and I said, Mr. Moran, can you please come outside and talk to me? I really would like to have a conversation with you. And he turned around. I was like, his back was to me. So he turned around and started screaming at me at the top of his lungs. So this very busy, loud room of people that's just sitting there socializing, talking to each other, falls dead silent as he's screaming at me. I'm not going anywhere with you. I don't have to listen to you. You're nobody. I'm pretty sure he threw around the N-word in there somewhere. There were some racial slurs, like, get away from me. I don't have to talk to you. You're nobody, blah, blah, blah. So if you know me, I don't scare easy. So I was toe-to-toe with him. And I was like, you got to go. Like, period. Like, you're not going to talk to me like that. You're not going to be in this space acting like that. There are a lot of the other SAGE members that were actually frightened because of the screaming. They were nervous. And so some started to get up and leave. I was really concerned that he was like flailing his arms and all kinds of things. And I was really nervous he was going to strike one of the people around him accidentally. So I stayed right there because I didn't want the next person to speak to him to like get the continued wrath of that. And so I stood right there, you know, toe to toe with him or whatever, and was like, I didn't scream back. I'm just like, look, you know, you gotta go. Like, that's it. Like, you have to leave. You can't behave like that here. He got so aggressive and so threatening and was yelling and screaming at me and getting in my face and pointing in my face, that Braden, who was doing announcements up on the stage, actually had to come down, and he put himself in between Mr. Moran and I because he was afraid for me. Sterling, another one of our staff members, had come from another room. Zariah, another one of our staff members, had come from another room. And so, like, all of the staff was sort of around the outside of the room watching. When Mr. Moran got, like, really agitated, Sterling came over to try to take care of me. And I remember, like, looking over at her, and she just kept saying, like, what do you want me to do? Like, what should I do? What do you want me to do? So Zariah, our boss, was actually, the executive director was actually down the street at a restaurant having lunch with the man who owns the Bachelor Forum. His name is escaping me. Who then also became the president of Out Alliance eventually, ironically, board. And so Zariah goes running to try to get him and bring him back to help. And Braden is standing there between us, trying to keep him from harming me. And Sterling is just asking me, like, what do I do? Like, Tam, what do you want me to do? And so I'm like, call the police. So she went into the other room to the front desk to call 911. Eventually, the executive director, Zariah, ran down the street to the restaurant, got him. He came back. Peter Moore, that's it. He was having lunch with Peter Moore. So they came back to the community center. Jeff came in and said he was gonna, and like started talking to him and made Sterling go back to the phone to cancel the police call so that I couldn't file a police report or get it documented what had happened to me. And I went to my office, I think, to like collect myself, gather myself, and the staff came into me and was like, Jeff took him in the other room with Evelyn Bailey, may she rest in peace, to talk to Jim and then let him go back to the lunch like nothing happened. And so I went to go knock on Jeff's door, who was meeting with Peter again in his office, and he's like, I don't have time to talk to you, I'm not talking to you about this now, and like shooting me away. So I came out of the office and was crying, upset. It felt so incredibly disrespectful to me that they let him just go back to lunch like nothing happened after how he had behaved with me. So one of our other staff members, Kaden, had actually knocked on the door again and said, I'm sorry, you are gonna have to talk to us. And he told them in no uncertain terms that if they didn't remove Jim from the center, that the rest of the staff was gonna walk out with me, because they wouldn't have me be put in danger like that and it be ignored. At that point, Jeff realized that this wasn't just going to go away, so he went and had a conversation with Jim, and Jim actually left on his own, and everyone was so upset that Kaden had went and called this diversity consultant that we had coming in to basically come in and be like the mediator of the situation between the rest of the staff and Jeff, because everyone was so incredibly upset about it, for me, concerned about me. So emergency came in, and we had like a round table and talked about it.